What's going on, everybody? A little Whiskey Patriots time. Two lovely ladies out from Colorado. A cop, we're not going to say where he's from because I want to get yelled at for like departmental policies and all that. And then we've got JR who returned for another beating, which is why I brought a cop. Anyway.
Yeah, but there's home field advantage here because
you guys know each other?
That's right.
That makes for better
That's
fist
even
fights.
better. Yeah, right.
First, ladies, tell everybody who you are, what brings you out here.
Hey, well, I'm Terry Keeney,
And I'm Pam Matt.
and we make up Helping Heroes Fly. We provide airfare to enlisted military members to get home for important occasions and life events when they can't afford it themselves.
Excellent. And why Connecticut?
Why Connecticut? There is a fundraiser that's being held on December 1st at the Hops Company, and in conjunction with Two Roads Brewery. They're doing a Road Home for the Holidays fundraiser that will benefit Helping Heroes Fly.
Awesome. And we are going to be throwing our Christmas party, all of the proceeds. We're going to cover all the costs, and then all the proceeds are going to this amazing organization as well. And website URL. You like how we're getting right into the shameless plug on this? 100%. Go for it.
Go.
HelpingHeroesFly.com.
Give them money.
Thanks.
Is that good? Cool. So you've got a Behind the Uniforms that's dropping in a couple of weeks. Super exciting stuff. And then JR, why don't you first of all tell everybody why we drink whiskey?
Well, we drink whiskey because our founding fathers sat around, talked politics, and created the framework of our great nation. Over whiskey.
Ladies brought out Tin Cup Whiskey from Colorado. This episode is not sponsored by Tin Cup Whiskey, but if Tin Cup Whiskey would like to sponsor future episodes, visit thewhiskeypatriots.com. Today, so first we got to do a little bit of follow-up on last week's episode because people got heated, dude. People got like really, really heated over negotiations.
Sure, I understand that.
I think you might have a few death threats in my inbox. I don't know how that worked out.
Look, at the end of the day, whenever you're dealing with working for a government, state, federal, whatever it is, you're at some disadvantage because if the state is going broke, you are now stuck. And Dan and I were talking about this afterwards. You're stuck with what is happening in the state of Connecticut. Sure. And so for a lot of these state troopers, I understand. And one of the things that I've discussed and we talked about it. We have to protect what we've promised, but we have to have a conversation about future hires. That's it. And I know that upsets them, but at the end of the day, it's where we are as a state. We're $5 billion in the hole.
So I get that. I think that the concern that many people brought up after the episode aired was that a lot of the proposals that are on the table from the Republican candidates in Connecticut aren't just going after future hires. The concern is that it's going after current state troopers as well.
Then I strongly encourage them to register as Republican and vote in our primary to make sure that the candidate that they want is the one that ends up being our candidate. Because there's 11. It's not like...
Are you sure you don't want to just run as co-governor with me?
I'm just saying, we have plenty of
one.
choices. And again, this is a legislative process, but I mean, we are losing... When you lose GE and Aetna, like this isn't... I mean, we're a state that is in desperate need of a new direction, and I understand the anxiety, I understand the fear, but the alternative is potentially bankruptcy, which means no pension at all. So, I think that that's kind of where we are as a state.
I'd like to open this up seriously, officially at this point. Any candidates on either side, Democrat or Republican, are invited to come onto an episode of Whiskey Patriots, talk about their platform, get beat up a little bit. Can you give some perspective on this because you're in the thick of it?
I am. The town, specifically the town that I'm with, it's a strongly Democratic town, and they're crying poverty, which everybody in the state of Connecticut, I guess, will be crying poverty. But in the years that I've been there has been no economic growth. Businesses have come into town or have proposed to come into town, and they've been shut down. There's nothing. There is no future. There's nothing. So for us to go to a negotiation table with a small raise, because we're not going to get the 3, the 4, the 5% raise for the next 3 years, and as a membership or as a union, we've come to accept it. But to just come right onto the table and say you're not getting anything, we're actually going to take away from you because we're broke, because we have poor planning, because we haven't planned for the future, and we've done nothing to help ourselves. We're going to take from you.
Well, this is what drives me nuts about freaking politics, right? Like, why I can't understand the idea of not running a town or a city or a state like a business. It's just spend, 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 spend. No fiscal responsibility. Like you said, you talked about a small raise being that of under 3%. Like a small, like 5% to me, I would be embarrassed to give an employee 5%. But I guess that's the difference in the business world versus the world of like I don't know how you do what you do, man. In the political arena, I would lose my mind.
Saving the state. So I look at it. If I save the Republican Party, I get more. If I get more Republicans elected, it's better for our state, which means it's better for my family, it's better for my friends. And listen, where I'm from, it's not like I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. We are low middle class family. A lot of people that build helicopters to Sikorsky's, a lot of cops, a lot of nurses. And so my community actually is one of the few, where I grew up was one of the few communities in the state that actually got money in this budget crisis. That's how desperate we are as a city. But I think we're missing an opportunity here because I would love to hear perspectives from Colorado.
They've got lots
Who had
of money.
revenue issues, right? Who had revenue issues?
One might say they have lots of green in their state.
Right. So I'm kind of curious. And listen, this is completely. We have no idea what you guys are going to say, but I'm very curious in what the impact has been, because you hear two different kind of sides to the story. So I'm curious and personal. And for those that don't know, Colorado legalized marijuana. I think everyone knows that, but they legalized marijuana, and the tax revenue's been through the roof.
Right.
But what's changed? What's happened?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing has changed, as far as we can tell. They said it was going to go to the schools. They said it was going to go, for this and that, and we aren't seeing it. Our schools where we live in northern Colorado are desperate for money. They're not getting that money from that I'm aware of. Now, my kids are long out of school, but so I don't have much association with anything in the district as far as schools, but we are not.
Right,
Yeah.
would you expect
general
anything
fund,
less though?
yeah.
Like this is what
That's where it's gonna
politicians
go.
do. Well, we're gonna earmark like Connecticut, man. Connecticut is famous for this. We're gonna earmark this
The
money
temporary
for
income
Right.
tax.
The busway to nowhere.
the busway to nowhere. We're going to allocate this funds to
That was federal
repairing
money for the
roads.
record, but I understand.
Whatever. Perception, my friend. Perception is
We could have bought
reality.
every person in the state of Connecticut a car for what it costs to build a busway.
Well,
actually.
thank
Yeah.
you. Exactly. A pretty nice car.
Yeah.
But you look at it, it's always, well, this money is going nowhere other than transportation or the road. We're going to fix the roads. Really? Because I hit like the crater, like a nuclear crater on 91 the other day because it just ends up in the general fund. It is, the irony of this drug money.
Oh.
Call what it is.
Connecticut is
what it
chasing
is.
drug and gambling money. I mean, we
Yeah.
are.
Like
We,
it.
we
But
want
it's-
casinos and marijuana.
We have that too.
Right, it's a
so.
drug. That's what happened with the casinos in Connecticut. It became drug money to them in the sense that they needed that money. They relied on it. So if we end up getting an unexpected project, a $50,000 video project, we don't anticipate that we're going to have that project every single month.
Right.
You take that money and you allocate it to reinvestment into the company, or you look at that as being an emergency pad. You don't rely on that. And that's the problem that politicians have. They think there's this unending pool of cash. What about the safety factor in Colorado? That's of concern to me as a father.
Well, it is a concern. Dan and I were talking earlier. For instance, the edibles, very dangerous for children. There's been warnings for the last few weeks about the Halloween candy. Be careful, watch the candy. Children have died. There's no good that has come from that I can tell. I'm not happy about it.
Interesting.
So we've done a lot of work in medical marijuana, which is ironic because I'm, a Christian conservative, and it was sort of unexpected to a lot of people that my agency would end up doing work in that industry. I'll tell you why we did it, candidly, and anybody could feel free to ask questions, weigh in, beat me up over this. I watched stage 4 pancreatic cancer patients who were dying, who their family savings were going out the window trying to provide some form of relief for them in their final days. 19 different kinds of pharmaceuticals. They didn't know who their kids were. And then they went on to a medical marijuana extract, and they came off of all of these opioids, and they had some measure of relief in their final days. I'm totally on board with
Yeah.
that.
As are we.
I am
Yeah.
150,000 times on board with true medical marijuana. Now, saying like, I need a therapy dog because I can't handle real life because I once saw a scary movie.
I want a therapy dog to help me study for finals.
Bingo. And
Right.
because of that, I have post-traumatic stress from those finals, and so
Yeah.
I need marijuana.
Seriously.
Like, I have a huge problem with that. So
Right.
there really is a line and a distinction that has to be drawn between people who are truly suffering. I've seen tremendous work in the veteran community.
I have to tell you though, I don't think that I mean, I understand that there's a fine line between ridiculousness and actual legitimate pain, but I don't understand why we aren't broadening this to beyond cancer patients. We have a massive, and Dan can talk about it as a police officer, epidemic with opioids.
Right.
I mean, I have a toothache. Here's heroin, basically. I don't understand why we aren't broadening this conversation, and I've argued this with doctors and nurses. More people die. We liberals love to argue over the gun issue, right? How many people are killed per year with a firearm? Those numbers are nothing compared to what we're losing in regards to the opioid crisis. And all they do is have press conferences and they say, oh, we're gonna. And it's not about stopping or changing the way that they want to limit doctors, but not in terms of production, not in terms of, and that's not a right.
Right.
But we're losing more and more people. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's, I guess I don't know what to describe him as, but he's a rescuer, I guess. But it's much more intense than that. He literally will kick down a door and pull someone out of a heroin house, or like he rescues these aspects of the family. And Connecticut hasn't even started to feel what's happening in Florida. There are people that you'll just see them slouched over in a Stop and Shop
No
plaza.
Yeah, I've seen them slouched over the steering wheel at traffic lights
Yeah.
or stop signs. Just the other day, I was with my wife driving, and I saw a person slumped over the wheel, and I turned around just to see if he was okay, whether it was a true medical issue or was it, my cop hat. No, he just shot up, and now he's on a crash, on the nod. And the car in front of me beeped a horn. Person's head pops up and drove off, and
Oh my God.
God knows where he went. I couldn't get the license plate, but called 911 and did the best I could to try and follow the guy because he took off like he was in a rocket. So
We're dropping a series with the state attorney's office. Actually, we're dropping in a couple of days about the opioid crisis here, specifically in Connecticut. But we sat down, my video team sat down with, I think it was 14 different, Joe, 14 different parents? 11 different parents. Or family members who had just lost people in the and we're not talking about bad kids. Like, we're talking about the star of the hockey team who got an injury, ended up on Vicodin, got one refill on it, and then next thing you know is turning
They say it's
to
within a week. You're
It's-
addicted.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
I know a family member of mine had tooth work, 2 teeth pulled. Here's 15 OxyContins. Like, and he turned them down, but he's like, what is this all about? I'm like, just throw them down the toilet.
Yeah.
The prescriptions are just being handed out like nothing. And
Well, even in regards to, I know, my grandmother, who, she didn't recently pass, but her anniversary of her passing was recently. But when she had to get her hips replaced, I think it was her hip or her knee, whatever it was, they kept putting off the surgery because of the pain medication. It's like, oh, no, well, another month. And then she does the surgery. She almost died because of the withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
Because she was 80 years old when they did this to her.
Yeah.
And it was, she went into a cardiac arrhythmia. It was bad. And then the worst part about it is we're standing in the room. The doctor's coming. He's like, we're going to give her something. And we're like, Tylenol. Give her Tylenol. Like, it's just...
Well, one of the women who we talked to, her grandson was born into withdrawal. I mean, he was going through heroin withdrawal, like, in the delivery room. It's absolutely, and then fentanyl obviously is the huge issue, as I'm sure you could speak to more, but I mean, when you really think about the scale of it, we're talking about more than 1,000 people in Connecticut who are going to die this year. And when you think about if you spread that number out, 1,000 people doesn't seem like that big of a number, but like, that's a high school. Like, fill that high school and eliminate every single like, that's the kind of scale that we're talking about here. And when you think about that, so there was a local I'm throwing this TV station under a bus. It's a local TV station who decided that they're not going to air this series because we didn't have a more diverse audience of volunteers who came forth in this. And the problem is that this isn't, like, we didn't look at this and see people of different colors or different socioeconomic backgrounds. Like, we looked at these people and we saw victims. We saw people who were suffering. We saw death. We saw families who were torn apart. We saw kids who were left without mothers and fathers. And it's so frustrating that we're in a day and age where before we can even begin to identify a problem and go after that problem, we have to think about perception and everybody's feelings on it. And I think that that's really stymieing the ability for law enforcement to do their jobs in the way that they need to, because they're worried about repercussions for not being politically correct all the time. Guys, everything's so backwards these days. That's why I'm glad we have whiskey. Forget opioids, we have whiskey.
Yeah, no, everything is backwards, and to throw out the race card right away, or just come to the table. You know, here's the topic, here's the issue, let's discuss it. Whether you're white, black, Asian, yellow, green, blue, who cares? You're a person, we're all people, we're all hurting. Family members are dying, people are just addicted to drugs, whether it's marijuana, opioids. The drug dealers are making profit like you wouldn't believe. They probably should run for office and put some of the money in the general fund.
It's not a bad idea.
They're the ones, doing things right for the community. But it's crazy when everything just turns to the race issue. It's just not what it's about.
Is racism an issue in America? Yes. Do we need to combat it? Yes. But we need to be contextually accurate about what it is and what it isn't. And we need to begin to see each other. And this is the whole point of Whiskey Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about black versus white versus Asian versus Hispanic. You're also Hispanic.
Yeah.
So, but here's the best part. So I'm going to throw Kyle under the bus here because he's a millennial. Right? So
You're a millennial
I
too.
am not. Dan and I are Generation X.
Oh.
So here's where our education was different than yours. This is true. When we grew up,
Lump me into these
Here we
jackasses.
go.
when we grew up, the propaganda was nothing else matters but the content or character. I can remember specifically
Yeah,
talking
content and
about
character.
it's
Yeah.
always about the person. It's about that was drilled into us in little grammar school and high school. It's about the person. It's about the person. Nothing else mattered. And I can remember in college getting in arguments with because I saw it. You saw all of this idea of separatism, and what mattered first and most was this tribal attitude about. And I saw it at Trinity College. They popped up. They built about 5 or 6 houses that were dedicated to. There was an Emoja house, which was the African American house. There was a Latino house. There was an Asian American house. I think it was Asa house.
Like, that's everything that Martin Luther King fought against.
Well, but when I kept arguing with them, I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like, this is going to promote separatism, and it's just it doesn't force interaction. I had more in common with the students who had the same economic like grew up the same way that I did than I did with the color of someone's skin.
What does this have to do with millennials?
Because
Why do you throw,
because millennials have grown up in this idea of separatism, is that the only thing that matters is this PC culture. And like, listen, I shared
man.
you that article
Please.
about a millennial wrote an article about not to have white children should not be allowed to dress up as Moana
Great,
for
so
Halloween.
you read one article written by one millennial. Guess what? The biggest problems that we have in Congress right now aren't millennial. The people who are really causing a lot of these problems and creating some of this division, they're not millennials. They are our parents' generation,
Wow.
a lot of these politicians.
Yeah.
So don't put this off on millennials, dude. Like,
Well-
I'm going to get heated about this, and let me tell you why.
baby
This
boomers
isn't-
talking about?
This is
We're
not
gonna
an
save the
age
world, by the way.
issue.
We're going to save the world.
Yeah.
The Generation X is going to save the world. That's what's going to end up
We're
happening.
coming to the rescue.
Well, we hope so.
This
Somebody's
is not
gotta
an
do it.
age issue. The problem is that millennials.
perception.
The problem. Well played. Damn it.
Well, the baby
Perception's
boomers are
reality.
appealing to millennials, so they're giving into what they want.
Right.
No. The problem is social media. The problem is the very platform that we're talking about right now. Because the only difference between our grandparents' generation and our generation, aside from work ethic, I'll give you that 100% because I'm dealing with a hiring process right now that makes me want to drink more whiskey. The big difference is that we have a mouthpiece. we have an opportunity to be louder than their generation because it's easier for us to connect with exponentially more. In a day, we're gonna have 10,000 views on this, right? Because we have an opportunity that our grandparents' generation didn't have, which means that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, which means that the people who are complaining and whining have an opportunity to whine louder than everybody else. And what's the media going to latch onto? It's going to latch onto that. So the problem, my friend, isn't millennials. The problem is this mindset of entitlement in society, which comes from our parents' generation saying, little Johnny could be anything that Johnny wants. Johnny
What's
can't be
entitlement? I
anything.
agree
Johnny
with
was
you.
eating a freaking glue stick. Like, little Johnny wasn't going to be an astronaut.
We didn't grow up that way.
I didn't grow up with participation trophies,
Yeah.
but
Right.
We
I
just
had to
missed
work.
it.
We just
I didn't
missed it.
either,
It was
but
last
again,
season.
who? Hold up for a second. Kids didn't ask for participation
No,
trophies.
baby boomers.
No.
It was the children of the '60s who created this philosophy that now has created the millennials, which is yes.
Right, but the problem is not.
Blaming that on us.
But yeah, no, absolutely. I'm blaming
My
it on
mom
you
wasn't
guys.
this way. My mom wasn't this way. But the policies that have in schools and when you're dealing with kids and all this stuff came from adults.
Right. You're right.
But again, you
wanna
can't
call
lump
them
them all together. Like,
do you mean?
they didn't create this problem.
No, the intellectuals.
My parents didn't. Like, my
No,
parents raised a really kick-ass kid.
Listen, in the '60s, everyone. You know what makes
Who
me
now
laugh
has a
about? But let's just talk like
Who has
the
a
baby
platform?
boomers. Let's talk about the 1960s, where it was like peace and love, and like everyone thinks everyone was a hippie. Nixon won. Nixon was the president in that era, which kind of tells you that this hippie movement wasn't as big as the media likes to romanticize it about.
Right.
But I think the point that those hipsters were, no, they're not hipsters, but those
not
hippies
the millennial
ended up being professors and ended up writing curriculum and
Totally.
creating
Right.
this philosophy about the only thing that matters is your opinion and like this self-entitlement and
But think about this for a second. So our parents had to work their asses off for everything that they had.
Yes.
From 16 years old, from 14 years old, they were working. They were working 2 or 3 jobs. I was raised with that mentality and that mindset, but many of my friends, their parents said, I don't want my kid to have to work
They don't
from
have
the
to work
time
that
he's
hard.
16.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's not fair. I didn't have a childhood because I started working from that young age. And then they're saying Facebook and Instagram where these parents, and listen, I respect it. They want to protect their kids for as long as they can. They want their kids to enjoy childhood, but the reality of it is that your kid hits 7 or 8 now and they're not a kid anymore, and it's because of how society has changed. So they're trying to protect their kids, but they're actually doing more harm to their kids because they're creating this bubble around them, and that is setting those kids up for failure.
Yep.
It's the handing of the participation trophies that's creating this entitled attitude and creating an environment where, like, finding good help in the millennial demographic is much harder. I will give you this, it is much harder than finding a 40 or a 50-year-old guy who was raised in that environment where they worked their asses
Listen,
off.
I tell a story. My father booed when my basketball coach put me in a game. My father started
awesome. I love
screaming
this.
at
That's a
the
bad
coach
idea.
for putting me in that moment in the game. And that's kind of, and I'll never forget Henry, my buddy
Yeah.
Henry. I walked in after the ball went out of bounds. My buddy Henry, the other, he goes, "Isn't that your dad?" I was like, yeah, that's my dad. But
There's
he
some-
was so angry that
Yeah.
the coach put me in, but
JR needed his playtime. He needed to get in the
well,
game.
no, it wasn't like that. It was the I was.
Dude, there's some state troopers that are booing us for tapping him back into another
Yeah, I'm
episode
sure.
after the last one. So, but
I want to go back to the parents not raising their kids, trying to protect them. I think a lot, and I see it with my daughter and my son. I think my son's 2, gonna be 3, and screen time. It's always, I want the iPhone, I want the iPad, and a lot of parents just fall. That's their
Yeah.
crutch.
Yeah.
My wife and I try our best to limit that and realizing, we're starting off our children with technology that we've never had. My son knows how to swipe on an iPhone, and to watch it happen, it's scary.
totally.
And then to see what's going to happen next, it's
They
it's
actually
what our kids are doing. They
Totally.
just sit immediate gratification. They just want to watch TV. They want to be in front of a screen rather than going outside and playing in the woods.
But in fairness, we teach them that. Like,
You're right.
I'll take full responsibility. I've got a soon-to-be 3-year-old, and I'm on my phone
Yes.
all the time.
I'm definitely, I'm guilty of it. I'm more aware of it now, but I still find myself going through my phone for whatever reason. It's like, oh shoot.
They actually say there's some scientific, some research that it has to do with like dopamine. That like there's this, and it kind of ties to this feeling of like, I had someone, they had this long cord to charge their phone. I was like, what do you need a cord? Well, I put it next to me on the bed, or I put it on my chest when I sleep. Why?
So you catch on fire.
Hold on, you don't sleep with your phone next to you?
No,
Are you kidding me?
no.
Well, no wonder why you never freaking text me back, because you never
I
have your
don't
phone
have
anywhere
it.
near you.
I don't.
My phone is my alarm clock. What if there's an
Yeah.
no one has a house phone these days?
What if there's an emergency? I mean,
Right. What if there's an emergency? I have my phone. You freaking
That's
don't.
the good and the bad of it is, you know, I find myself where I need it on the nightstand and I'm trying to get away from that, but it's there and I'm on call, I'm not on call, what if something happens? And it's a catch-22, you know, you don't want a home phone, but you want a cell phone, it's your alarm clock.
There was a study that found that
It's-
86% of people use social media while sitting on the toilet. What they didn't reveal, which I think is the case, is that 14% of people in that study lied. I believe so. So I'm washing my hands at the gym the other day, right? And I hear from a stall ESPN playing. Like, how disturbing! Like, we're not even going to go down that road. Anyway, Joe's giving me the look that says, "Will you guys shut up already?"
Yeah.
So one more shameless plug. How can people find you guys?
HelpingHeroesFly.com.
Or on Facebook, Helping Heroes Fly.
Excellent. Danny's episode of Behind the Uniforms is dropping in another week or so. Check it out. JR, can you get some candidates on this show
I
for
can
us to
try.
beat up?
I can try.
We are going to be doing, normally my agency has a Christmas party. We invite friends and family. This year we're going to invite guests who are on Behind the Uniforms. Everyone else, instead of just a freebie for everybody, anyone that comes to our Christmas party this year, we're covering all the expenses and we're going to sell tickets to it this year, and every single penny is going to these ladies. So for those of you who have been on past episodes who are going to be in Connecticut, we'll announce the party. I hope you guys all check it out. If you guys can't come, I hope you still donate. It's an amazing, amazing cause. So guys, to Helping Heroes Fly, to our police and first responders, to America. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.